If you suck at clutching, it's probably not because of your aim. It's because you're approaching clutch situations in a way that makes them unwinnable before the fight even starts. In this video, I'm going to break down why most players fail in clutch situations and give you a simple framework to start converting unfavorable situations into consistent wins. We'll go over how to isolate fights, control information, use the clock, and manipulate your opponents so you're not relying on hero plays to win every clutch. Before we get into that though, just some quick context so you know where this is coming from. I've helped my team reach second place across all USA colleges in Valorant, reached top 200 in the finals, and won as a solo queue against full-time pro players in leaderboard stacks more than 600 times across 5 FPS titles. What I'm about to share with you isn't just theory, it's the patterns that consistently show up in high-level clutch situations. The first and most important concept for improving at clutches is isolating 1v1s. The biggest mistake players make in clutch situations is taking on a 1v2 at the exact same time. They swing wide, expose themselves to multiple angles at the same time, and try to out-aim 2 players at once. And while that might work occasionally against bronze players, it's completely inconsistent and puts you at a massive disadvantage. Instead, your goal should always be to break the fight into separate engagements. You want to position yourself in a way where only one enemy can see you at a time. That means playing tighter angles, using cover properly, and repositioning before committing to a fight. You're not trying to win a 1v2, you're trying to win 2 isolated 1v1s back to back. A useful framework for this is the 60-40 rule, which was popularized by Shadow and the Destiny 2 community. The idea is that when you peek, about 60% of your screen is exposed to the angle you're fighting, while 40% remains covered from other dangerous angles. This naturally limits how much you're exposing yourself and makes it significantly harder for multiple enemies to see you at once. Once you start applying this, you'll notice how often you were over peeking before and losing fights because of it. The next concept is information control. In a clutch, the enemy team has numbers, which means they can cover more space and gather more information than you can. If you play predictably, they will collapse on you instantly. And that's why your biggest advantage is the fact that they don't know exactly where you are. You need to preserve that advantage as long as possible. That means minimizing unnecessary noise, using silent walking, and avoiding predictable positioning. If you take a fight and reveal your position, you should almost always be thinking about repositioning immediately. You need to force the enemy to constantly question where you are instead of giving them a clear answer. Utility plays a huge role here as well. You don't always need it to secure kills. Sometimes its value comes from creating uncertainty. A smoke, a flashbang, or any ability that blocks vision or delays movement forces enemies to second guess their positioning and drift away from their teammates. That hesitation is what allows you to isolate fights more easily. For example, if you Molotov a doorway, you immediately deny one of the entry points the enemies can use to push you. Now, instead of swinging together, they're forced to either wait and give you time to reposition, or funnel through a single choke. That breaks their timing and spacing, which gives you a much higher chance of taking a clean 1v1 instead of getting overwhelmed. Another factor that most players completely ignore is the clock. Rounds are not infinite, but players treat them like they are. They panic, rush decisions, and take fights they don't need to take. In reality, time is one of your biggest tools in a clutch. If you have time, use it. Reposition, wait for mistakes, and force the enemy to make the first move. But you also need to recognize when time is no longer on your side. If you need to plant or defuse, you have to act with urgency. Good players are constantly aware of how much time is left and adjust their pace accordingly. They know when to slow the round down and when to speed it up. A simple way to improve this is to build a habit of checking the clock after every major action you take. If you just got a pick, ask yourself how much time that bought you and whether you can afford to reposition again. If the clock is low, you should already be thinking 2 steps ahead about where you need to be to complete the objective. Players who forget about time end up forcing desperate plays, while players who track it can make calm, calculated decisions even under pressure. This ties directly into the next concept, fakeouts. In clutch situations, you're not just fighting your opponents mechanically, you're manipulating their expectations. Since the enemy doesn't have full information, you can use that against them. Simple things like making noise towards one site and then rotating to another can completely disrupt the enemy's positioning. They might over-rotate or leave gaps in their defenses. Fake plants can force enemies to reveal their position or push you when you're ready for it. Even something like a fake reload can bait an aggressive swing if the opponent thinks you're vulnerable. These small mind games are incredibly powerful because they force the enemy to act on incomplete information. And when they act incorrectly, you get easier fights. The key idea across all of this is control. Clutching isn't about hitting insane shots. It's about controlling how the fight happens one step at a time. Instead of relying on perfect mechanics, use what we've discussed in this video to set yourself up for situations where the fight is already in your favor. Real quick, if you watched this far into the video, please consider subscribing. Currently, 95% of my viewers are not subbed to the channel, and every sub really means a lot for a channel of my size. Thank you for your consideration. So the takeaway is simple. You don't suck at clutching because of your aim. You struggle because you're taking fights in a way that makes them unnecessarily difficult. Focus on isolating 1v1s, controlling the information you give away, using the clock to your advantage, and creating fakeouts to manipulate your opponents. If you can do this consistently, you'll start to notice that clutch situations feel less chaotic and more controlled. And when you get enough reps in, you won't just be winning more clutches, you'll also be unfazed and confident every time your team is depending on you alone. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say for this video. I'll put in a couple of clips of my own clutches in top 200 lobbies to show you some of the principles I mentioned in this video. Enjoy.
Can't keep the current